Coming up on Network Africa. Manhunt underway for 10 suspects who killed 12 people in a mass shooting in Johannesburg. Nigeria's Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Shola Enikonolaye, to welcome Nigerians returning from South Africa on Thursday morning. Plus, Omar Artan, the Somali referee who was denied entry into the United States for the World Cup, returns home. Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us at this hour. I'm Amarachi Ubani. We begin in South Africa, where police are searching for at least 10 people they suspect carried out a mass shooting at an informal settlement in Johannesburg, killing 12 people. Police say the men were heavily armed with rifles. They entered the Jumpers informal settlement in the suburb of Cleveland late Tuesday night and opened fire before fleeing in a white vehicle. They're yet to determine the motive for the shooting, but have described it as heartless and barbaric. They're also investigating another incident in which another 9 people were injured. Those in the Jumpers community believe the shooting may be linked to a turf war between groups of illegal miners living in the area. Illegal mining has been on the increase in South Africa, which has one of the highest murder rates in the world. While shooting in informal settlements are not uncommon, they're sometimes linked to gang violence and personal disputes. A group of 171 Malawians arrived in their country's capital, Blantyre, on Tuesday, following their evacuation from South Africa, following xenophobic attacks by locals against migrant workers. Upon arrival, they underwent temperature checks before queuing for registration and meals. Chief Secretary to the Government of Malawi and the Secretary to the President and Cabinet, Justin Sadie, said authorities encourage Malawi residents in South Africa to repatriate as the situation in the country is not good. He also says the government is sending more buses to transport the evacuees. Their evacuation comes amid South African anti-migrant groups issuing demands for the undocumented foreigners to leave the country, set in June 30 as a deadline.
The plan is that immediately after this, we are sending a team and buses to also get them. I know the numbers may not be enough, but that's why, as government, we do our part. But also we still appeal to other organizations, companies, even individuals, banks, to support us so that we repatriate all our people. According to the situation in South Africa, it's not good, and therefore we are not encouraging them to go back to South Africa, because these are our people. We need their lives, we need their support, we need them to develop the country. So we want them to be here in Malawi.
In the meantime, Nigerians in South Africa are preparing to be evacuated from the country back home. A statement from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs says the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Shola Enikonolaye, will be on ground at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport to receive them on behalf of the federal government. The 268 evacuees will be accompanied by the Acting High Commissioner to South Africa, Ambassador Temitope Ajayi, who will then hand them over to the minister upon their arrival in Lagos. They will be transported by the Peace Airlines and Air Peace Airlines, and are expected to arrive at 5 in the morning of Thursday. According to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, a screening exercise by the Nigerian High Commission in Pretoria for Nigerian nationals willing to voluntarily return to the country due to the ongoing xenophobic attacks has been extended to Sunday, June 14, 2026, to accommodate more persons. And as the evacuation process continues in light of the recent violent attacks resulting from those anti-migrant protests in South Africa, the protests have been concerning to Nigerians and the government, who want a stronger intervention by the South African president. Here's more on this.
Migration is the way of the world, and we must be prepared to embrace it. South Africa is a better country for migration, and we can become better still.
The words of South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa as he appeals to citizens to live together with migrants in the country. Immigration has always been a thorny issue in South Africa, a country rich in natural resources and several distinct ecosystems. Its stable economy and conducive terrain has attracted people from across Africa, making it a melting pot of different tribes and tongues.
South Africa is an investment-friendly country. And, you know, investors, they look at the optics, they see what is there, and that attracts them to that economy. In terms of Nigerian business cooperation, the business community in Nigeria are watching with keen interest what is going on.
But the attraction has become a bane for the South African people, whose immigration systems struggle to control the influx. Frustrated by the impacts on social welfare and well-being, they've turned on their African brothers, and Nigeria, once again, has resorted to evacuations. More than 1,000 Nigerians are being screened by the High Commission in Pretoria and the consulate in Johannesburg for the start of evacuations on Wednesday night.
The repatriation is on course. Mr. President himself has reiterated the fact that this aircraft must come to South Africa, and our citizens who are imperiled will have the chance of getting on this aircraft to be brought back to their country.
In light of the surge in rallies and protests against foreign nationals in recent months, and coupled with high unemployment, President Ramaphosa has confirmed a host of new measures to tackle irregular migration, but he's also warned South Africans not to turn on each other. The measures he's proposed include jail time for those hiring undocumented workers, special courts to speed up deportations, and the use of biometric data to combat identity theft.
I'm a bit worried by the way at which the government is handling the situation, because I believe any serious government that is serious about clamping down, on these vigilante groups, needs to be done. But unfortunately, that is not what we are seeing.
Previous outbreaks of violence, including deadly riots in 2008 and renewed attacks in 2015 and 2019, have strained relations between Africa's two largest economies. While South African authorities condemn xenophobia and promise to protect all residents, the latest tensions between the two highlight persistent tensions and vulnerability of migrant communities in the country. Amarachi Ubani, Channels Television News. A new report by Human Rights Watch has accused AFC M23 rebels and the Rwandan army of having committed numerous war crimes in eastern DR Congo. It says that in the aftermath of the capture of the city of Goma on January 30, 2025, when 11 trucks left the Unity Stadium with approximately 1,700 people on board and headed north towards Rushuru, a campaign of forced recruitment began, which HRW, which conducted some 200 interviews with former detainees, describes as systematic. Soldiers of the Congolese armed forces, police officers, civil servants, or ordinary civilians rounded up in neighborhoods, hospitals, or churches are all forcefully taken to the camps in Rumangambo and Shanzu, where the NGO estimates that hundreds of people died during the year 2025. The report says witnesses reported mass graves in Rumangambo and ground disturbances have been detected by satellite imagery. HRW also accused the Congolese government of backing armed groups responsible for serious abuses. The report documents FARDC support for the Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda and Wazalendo factions accused of violence, arbitrary detention and extortion against displaced people around Goma. HRW is calling on Kinshasa to seize all material support to these groups and to open independent investigations targeting all parties to the conflict. And now to a rather sensitive issue. A new investigation by the Punch newspapers reveals young Nigerians have been deceived into joining the fight on the side of Russia in its war against Ukraine. The story of three Nigerians highlighted in the report, Ayebusiwa Victor, Kazim Kolawole, and Stephen Udoka, recounted how their dreams of relocating from Nigeria turned to nightmare when they ended up on the front lines of the war. The report says at least 316 African recruits have been killed in the war that began in February of 2022. Earlier this year, CNN did report the recruits were lured with promises of salaries denominated in foreign currencies for entry-level jobs like drivers or security guards, only to end up at the war front. The contracts offered to recruits, written in Russian without translators or lawyers, contain binding and open-ended clauses such as a ban on foreign travel if they ever get access to state secrets, mandatory surrender of passports, and reimbursement of funds spent on military training to the state if they ever receive one. This includes the life-threatening deliverable of being on the front line and predatory agents who only see recruits as recruitment targets to be met and indicators of the sign-in bonuses to be received. Joining us now is the author of that report, Oluseyi Awojulugbe. She joins us from Lagos virtually. Oluseyi, thank you for joining us on the program today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, these types of stories, one that you have highlighted in your report, have all been debunked in the past. When we started hearing about Nigerians being part of the Russian army, I mean, even Nigerians in Russia did debunk that story. So what makes this more defining for you?
Well, on this particular instance, it was the announcement by the Ukrainian government that a Nigerian national, Ayebusiwa Victor now, was killed in the war. And by the time I did a little search on his Facebook profile, I actually discovered that he was part of the Nigerian Navy at some point. I have no idea how he left the Nigerian Navy and ended at the front line of the Russia-Ukraine war. And so I decided to dig a little deep, and I found stories of other Nigerians, one who returned back to the country, but of some other Nigerians who ended up dead at the front line of a war that did not concern them, so to speak.
Right. And the Nigerians that you have mentioned, have they been able to leave Russia now? And do they recount their experience, how they left?
Well, one person who's been identified, Adewale, is now back in the country. On his own part, he was being lured to join or given an offer to join the Russian army in exchange for being let go from prison, because he was actually convicted of a crime in Russia while in Russia. And so in exchange for serving a two-year jail term, he was given an offer to join the Russian army, which he declined. And so for that person, he is back in the country. But the same is not the story for other Nigerians like Stephen Udoka, Kolawole Kazim, who have now been confirmed dead by the Ukrainian government.
Wow, that is really sad. And why do you think, Oluseyi, that these stories are first met with disbelief? I mean, the Russian government can also debunk this as propaganda, even though a similar report has been made by international media.
Well, it's hard to believe that anyone would be recruited from West Africa to go fight up there in Russia for several reasons. You have the climate, you have the language barrier. You know, it's even the thought of signing up to join the army and during an active war, right? So it's hard to believe that anyone would voluntarily sign up for that kind of thing. But I know that the Russian government has come out to say any volunteers did so voluntarily and in full knowledge of what they were signing up for. However, that has not been the case for some victims from other African countries. For instance, in February this year, about 15 South Africans were repatriated after the South African government had a deal with the Russian government. So if these people voluntarily signed up, why were they repatriated, right? These are the questions that we need to ask, and we need to understand that people may not necessarily have known what they were signing up for. We've had victims who said they were made to sign contracts that were not in English language, and they did not have the services of a translator. So in some instances, they didn't even know what they were signing up for. So these are the conversations that need to be had.
Right, and if they said they were being made to sign up, for these ventures, it supposes that there was some pressure on them to sign. They really didn't fully understand, what was going on, and also supposes that there are agencies on the ground here in Nigeria that are helping with these signatures. Oluseyi, thank you so much for this report, bringing it to light, and for joining us on Network Africa to discuss it. Well, that takes us to our first break on the program. Still ahead. Well, they've been freed and they're in camps in Borno State. The governor meets with the women and children who have been released after they're kidnapped by Boko Haram. Stay with us.
In every show, we bring you closer to the fastest growing movie industry in the world. From the making to the premiere. Get up close and personal with the stars and industry captains, plus reviews and much more. Nollywood Uncut, every week at these times.
Welcome back to Network Africa. The chairman, Nigerians and Diaspora Commission, Abike Dabiri Erewa, says the commission is closely monitoring developments in Belfast, Northern Ireland, following a night of violence in which houses and properties were burnt following the stabbing of a 40-year-old man on Monday. A statement by the commission quotes her as saying, "Whenever communities experience moments of tension, it is important that we do not allow isolated incidents to divide us, but rather strengthen our commitment to peace, dialogue, and mutual respect." Director, Media, Public Relations and Protocols of the Commission, Mr. Abdurrahman Balogun, also expresses concern over the situation and extends its thoughts to all individuals and families affected by the disturbances. The Commission underscores the need for restraint, understanding, and respect for law and order during this sensitive period. The Commission acknowledges the efforts of community leaders and organizations working on the ground to promote unity, understanding, and responsible engagement across all groups. NIDCOM notes ongoing appeals for cooperation with law enforcement authorities and actions that discourage division within the community. The U.S. has called for tighter travel restrictions from the Democratic Republic of Congo as a number of confirmed cases in the DRC surpasses 600 and the death toll reaching 100. The DRC remains the epicenter of the outbreak, reporting 589 confirmed cases after 45 new infections were detected within 24 hours. Uganda reported no new confirmed cases during the same period. Health officials believe the real number of infections could be higher due to underreporting and challenges in accessing affected communities. Africa CDC says the outbreak response is being hindered by severe operational constraints across several affected regions. Many health facilities lack basic necessities, including potable water, protective equipment, decontamination materials, and functioning incinerators. Authorities have also reported shortages of ambulances and mounting pressure on health workers, some of whom remain unpaid. Meanwhile, a massive push for early testing and contact tracing is underway in the eastern DRC to contain the virus. The fast-moving outbreak, which has also spread to neighboring Uganda, is caused by the rare and deadly Bundibuyo species of the Ebola virus. WHO's Emergency Alert and Response Operations Director, Dr. Abdurrahman Mahmoud, told reporters in Geneva that as of the 8th of June in the DRC, there have been 550 confirmed cases and 101 deaths. Well, speaking from Bunia in Ituri province, which accounts for 94% of total cases in the country, Dr. Mahmoud explained that the rise in confirmed cases is due to the scale-up of testing. More decentralized labs have opened to accelerate analysis of suspected Ebola samples, including a fully functional facility in Mongwalu. Let's head to South Sudan, where 9 children formerly associated with armed forces in Western Equatorial State are beginning a new chapter in life after being identified, released and handed over for reintegration into communities. The process, led by South Sudan's National Disarmament, Demobilization and Reintegration Commission with support from UNICEF, United Nations missions in South Sudan and state authorities, as part of ongoing efforts to end the recruitment and use of children by armed forces. The children are now receiving support to help them rebuild their lives and pursue opportunities outside military structures, including education, vocational training and psychosocial support tailored to their individual needs.
During this verification, we identified 5 boys within the ages of 16 and 17 who have been released and properly handed over to UNICEF for reintegration. AMIS remain committed to support the government of South Sudan to ensure the implementation of the Comprehensive Action Plan to prevent and end the 6 grave violations against children.
Referee Omar Atton has vowed to officiate at the 2030 World Cup after arriving home in Somalia following his ban from entering the United States. A 34-year-old Africa Referee of the Year in 2025 was set to be the first Somali to referee at a World Cup finals, but was denied entry at Miami International Airport on Monday despite holding a diplomatic passport and a single-entry U.S. visa. No reason for his repatriation has been given by U.S. immigration authorities, but Somalia is one of several countries on a travel ban list introduced by U.S. President Donald Trump. Well, he arrived back in Somalia today, landing at the Aden Ade International Airport in Mogadishu, where he was greeted by government officials and representatives of the Somali Football Federation, as well as fellow referees and local residents. Atton was expected to attend a public event at Mogadishu Stadium later this afternoon and watch a match between Higan and Daha. Atton, who was named the Confederation of African Football Men's Referee of the Year 2025, was one of the 52 referees selected for the tournament. We'll return to Atton later, but back here in Nigeria, the Borno State Governor Babagana Zulum has visited a temporary camp in Polka, meeting hundreds of women and children rescued after being kidnapped by Boko Haram. Troops from Operation Harinkai and Special Forces recovered 360 people from a fortified insurgent enclave deep in the Mandara Mountains on Saturday. The military said the operation followed weeks of intelligence gathering and covert reconnaissance. Troops moved in under cover of darkness, blocked escape routes, and overwhelmed fighters guarding the mountain enclave.
Commend the efforts of the Nigerian Armed Forces, commend the efforts of the Office of the National Security Advisor, commend the Office of the Department of Security Services, and all other security agencies, including our gallant Civilian Joint Task Force, forest guards, vigilante and hunters that have participated immensely in ensuring the release of these abducted men, women and children. Furthermore, we are here to support them with relief material, food and non-food items. Each and every household will receive food and non-food items. But most importantly, we are also interfacing with the community about their return. Those that are willing to return to this community, we are working with the Nigerian Armed Forces, as well as other security agencies, with a view to establishing institutional arrangement that will ensure their dignified return.
And as we end the program, here is our fun fact for the day. Did you know that Somalia has never played in the FIFA World Cup? Somali football did, however, make global history this year when elite referee Omar Artan was selected as the very first Somali official to referee at the tournament. Artan flew into Miami International Airport to join the tournament despite holding a diplomatic passport and valid entry documents. U.S. immigration officials denied him entry. This decision was tied to U.S. travel restrictions. Because of this, FIFA had to remove him from the referee lineup. And now we all know. Thanks for watching Network Africa. I'm Amarachi Ubani.